dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Peace, peace, people. Welcome to We Are Our Ancestors, the Jelly Moose's Cafe, Yemima's World. I am your hostess, Yemima, and of course, it's always good to be black in the land of the living once again. I do not own the rights to that song. It is Jingle Bells. It's an old, old Christmas song. I don't even remember or reading when it was written. It was sometime in the 19th century that this song was written. An old song that we learned as kids around this time of the year. So tonight, I just want to kind of go back in time. I always, when I'm thinking about my ancestors and honoring the ancestors, think about what they were doing at particular times um, of the year, especially this time of the year, where there's supposed to be good times and holiday and Christmas cheer and Christmas spirit and all of that good things. But for our ancestors who were enslaved at this time of the year, what were they going through? What did they have going on? What were required of them? And there were a lot of things going on at this time of year. The enslavers had a lot of things going, depending on how big the plantation was. So we know that a lot of the plantations would not shut down or stop work, but the work would be a little bit less during this time of year, usually from Christmas Eve on to the first of the year. The work would be less for those that worked in the field. And depending on where you lived, if you lived in Virginia, like I do, depending on the weather, would depend on what type of work you were doing this time of year. Virginia is a menopausal state. That means that she can be cold in the morning and hot in the evening. So you just don't know. Sometimes it could be a foot of snow. So depending on the weather, that dictated what our ancestors were doing this time of year. The ones that worked in the field had some time off. Now those that worked in the big house, in the main house, they did not have time off. Actually, their work would double this time of the year because if the plantation was a large one, they would have guests coming in. And so those that worked in the big house would have to do extra cleaning, extra cooking. Those that were drivers may have had to drive to other plantations to pick up families that were coming in to bring them back to that particular plantation. There were weddings that took place in December on the plantation. We were not June brides. We did not start that foolishness until after emancipation, where we would get married in June. Well, not all the time, but a lot of women, a lot of Black people adopted that June bride, calling themselves June brides. Um, they would jump the broom. My grandmother, who was not enslaved, however, I believe that she probably got married in December because it was probably something that was through stories. Her grandmother may have gotten married in December, but my grandmother married. My grandfather passed away. They got married on December 27th, and then they were married, and he passed away, and then she got married again. And the second time she got married was also in December. Her sister also got married in December. So on the plantation, our ancestors were jumping the broom. They also had cakewalks during this time of year. They had corn shucking contests during this time of year. They would get up early on Christmas morning and go and receive their gifts from the enslaver. And they would say something like Christmas gift And I'm going to read a book about that, so we'll get to that. But I just want to really talk about some of the things they went through. And excuse me, they also use this time of the year to seek freedom because the work was lax, and because the overseers weren't really paying a whole lot of attention. They were trying to get their party on too. A lot of our enslaved ancestors took this time um, to escape or to seek freedom. They would get passes to go to someone to another plantation to visit relatives, and they would end up actually seeking freedom. A lot of the plantation owners, a lot of the plantation enslavers, they knew this would happen, and what they would do is they would give their enslaved, especially the men, alcohol, liquor. And so you will understand that uh, in the Black community, Christmas time is a time for spirits. I'm not talking about the ghosts of Christmas past, present, or future. I'm talking about Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, uh, Crown Royal, Moonshine. Those are the type of spirits that we even today will partake in at this time of the year, and sometimes overly partake in it. And the overly partaking of it is something that we we did on the plantation. A lot of times we would do it on our own to alleviate that uh, depression of being enslaved. But also, a lot of times, the enslavers themselves would give them alcohol because they knew if they kept them inebriated, then they didn't have to worry about them being seeking freedom. So that was what they would do. Now, one other thing that I want to talk about tonight that happened to our ancestors um, during this time of year and during other times of year, but especially during this time of year, is that we were given away as Christmas gifts. You see, the title of the episode tonight is called Eliza, the Christmas Gift. The picture, I do not own the rights to the picture. It is taken from the American Girl series. I believe the American Girl is a doll, and there are different uh, young women that the stories are based on. And this one is based on, I believe the character's name is Anne, and she's an enslaved girl. And I found this picture online, and I just thought it was just perfect for tonight's episode. So yeah, the American Girl. So I love the picture. But back to the story. So we were given away as Christmas presents, and I wrote a story about this, and it's called Eliza, the Christmas Gift. It's an original story, and so I want to read it, if that's okay with y'all. All right. When I was a child, I was living on the Matthew Davis plantation in Warren County, North Carolina, with my mama, Amanata. They called her Hattie. And Papa Io, they called him Arthur. Mama was the cook for the plantation, and Papa was one of the drivers. It was a large place, lots of slaves, and plenty of room to run around and play. Our enslaver had many overseers to make sure nobody went beyond the plantation or tried to escape. And although our life was hard, there was one time of the year that we looked forward to, Christmas time. I didn't really understand what it was exactly. I just knew that most of us that worked in the fields got time away from the fields, and our enslaver would give out presents, and there would be plenty to eat. And it was the perfect time to try to escape. I would always stay in the big house with Mama, and she would always give me treats from the big dinner she would have to cook for the visiting relatives. All the others would use this time to sing songs outside, play makeshift musical instruments, make costumes out of old colorful rags, and make their way toward the big house to yell, Christmas gift! This was a celebration that we called Junkanoo. The Junkanoo was created as a festival for us slaves to express our joy in our own way. Some slaves worked all year long on their costumes to see who had the best. And after all that was done, we had cakewalks and corn shucking contests. Some people would use this time of year to jump the broom and marry out. Mama told me once That's when her and Papa got married at Christmas time. Mama and Papa were brought here together from a place called Guinea-Bissau. That's in Africa. She told me about her life there before she was brought here. She said they didn't have any Christmas time there, and that was all right with her. She said if celebrating this Christmas thing meant she had to be a slave, well, she could do without. And even though we seemed happy this time of year, we knew that New Year was coming, and that meant separation of families. Although some didn't wait until the new year, oftentimes we were given away to family members as Christmas gifts. It was 1840. I was about 13 years old. I was working in the big house with Mama. She taught me how to cook for the white folk. She said, don't use a whole lot of seasoning, that they tend to like their food bland. It was Christmas time. The plantation was as busy as ever. Master Matthew was expecting his son Peter and his wife Hannah to visit. Mama said I had to be on my best behavior. This Christmas, Mama didn't seem happy at all. When she was making one of the pies, I saw tears fall into the mixture. Then Mistress Mary come in. She never said a word. She just looked at Mama. Mama looked at me and told me to go and put on my Sunday best dress. I was a little confused, but I figured I would be serving food and she wanted me to look my best. I went to the quarters and put on my dress as Mama told me to do. Papa was standing by the wagon where he had just brought Master Peter and his wife Miss Hannah in. He was helping Miss Hannah out of the wagon. You could clearly see she was with child. When I went back to the kitchen, Mama and Papa took me into the parlor. There sat Master Matthews, Mistress Mary, and their son, Master Peter, and his wife Miss Hannah, and her big old belly. Mama held my hand and Miss Hannah began to speak. How old is she? She looks very small. Does she know anything about babies and how to care for them? How was she asking these questions? I looked to Mama for answers, but she was silent. And Miss Mary said, Eliza, I'm giving you to my daughter-in-law, as a Christmas gift. You will be her slave and you will help her with her child. For how long? Words slipped out before I knew it, and Mama tightened her grip on my hand. For as long as you live, was the answer. Now go and take off your Christmas dress so that you and Hattie can serve Christmas dinner. Her name is Aminata. Words again slipped out before I knew it. This time, the answer was a backhanded slap across my face from Miss Mary. Miss Hannah, she just smiled at my pain. She then noticed a cowrie shell that I wore around my neck. One single shell on a thin string. Mama had worn it in her hair when she was taken from Africa. Miss Hannah snatched it off and threw it on the floor, and Mama managed to scoop it up before anyone really noticed. I returned to the quarters to take off my Christmas dress with a sting on my face. Tears began to roll. It was salty, and I was bitter. How was I supposed to live without my Mama and Papa? When I returned to help Mama serve dinner, she was humming. And I asked her what she was humming, and she said an old African song that she would hum to the ancestors. She said she was asking them to watch over me, to protect me, and to guide me. She took the cowrie shell that had been thrown on the floor and placed it in my hands. She told me never to let Miss Hannah see it again. She told me the cowrie shell was a symbol of wealth and pride of our people, that it held the essence and energy of our ancestors, the energy of her mama and papa that she left in Africa. Mama taught me as much as she could that night about caring for babies, and I didn't want to hear any of it. My mind was filled with thoughts of me leaving the only place I've ever known and leaving my mama and papa. The next morning, I packed up the little bit I had. I thought since Papa was the driver that brought them there, he would be the driver to take them home, to take us home. The master was afraid that Papa would take me and run. So Albert, the other driver, took us away. course, I sat up top with him. He was trying to console me and told me of many stories where slaves were given away as Christmas gifts. He told me the stories about the flying Africans that could fly back to Africa and be with their people. He said white people must have heard that story because now they tell stories about some white man flying around the world on the night before Christmas, leaving presents for good little children. I thought to myself, well, ain't too many white children that's good, so ain't too many of them getting no presents. Over the years, I helped Miss Hannah bring 8 children into this world and helped take care of all of them. The new plantation, I met a young blacksmith named Jordan. Christmas of 1845, we jumped the broom. I gave birth to a son and was forced to name him Peter. But in my heart, his name was Io. Every year at Christmas time, I would hum that song Mama Amanata taught me and call on the ancestors to watch over us, to protect us, and to guide us. The end. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the Christmas gift. I want you to think about the story that I just told. Again, it's an original story that I wrote. Um, think about what our ancestors went through at Christmas time. It certainly was not a joyous time at all times for them. They went through lot of heartache, a lot of pain, but they made it through. And we know they made it through because we're here. So that's it for tonight. You know the drill. Love yourself, love each other, give yourself some grace, give each other some grace. Honor your ancestors, they will honor you. We are our ancestors. Stay warm, stay cool wherever you are. It has been very cold the last couple of days here in the 757. And until next time, stay blessed and stay black.